Good chess.
Yeah, dark shadows.
Who does?
It's quickly.
Oh, yeah, it's fine.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's not gonna quit it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we're ready to go, Simon?
Yeah.
Perfect. I will look for a mover and a seconder to open the meeting. Moved by member Foisey, seconded by member Blinsky.
Okay.
Now, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll call the meeting to order of the Planning Advisory Committee for February 4th, 2025. Moved by member Foisey, seconded by member Blinsky, that this meeting be opened at 6:01 p.m. All in favor? That's carried. The adoption of the agenda, I'll need a mover and a seconder. Moved by,
We have to change the
Member
date.
Paquette.
It's 2024.
oh yeah,
Change the date.
yeah,
Oh,
and a seconder. Boise, that the agenda presented to the. Yes, sir, this is the agenda. The agenda presented to the Planning Advisory Committee dated February 4th, 2025 be adopted as prepared. All in favor? Okay. Now it's the adoption of the previous minutes. So moved by, I'm gonna move it a seconder. Please, seconded by member Langlois, that the minutes of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting dated, is it January 7th?
Yeah.
January 7th, 2025 be adopted as circulated. Questions or comments on that? Hearing none, all in favor? That's carried. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Hearing none, we will move into a public presentation portion of our meeting, to which I just need to read a declaration of public hearing. Take notice that the Planning Advisory Committee, on behalf of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Bondfield, is holding a public meeting tonight on February 4th, 2025, to consider a proposed consent application under Section 53 of the Planning Act. The proposed consent application, reference B2 2025, would result in the creation of 2 new lots plus the retained lands at the property legally described at Concession 2, Part Lot 29, REM Parcel 1233 NIP. If a person or public body that files an application of a decision of the Township of Bondfield in respect of the proposed consent application does not make an oral submission at this public meeting or has made a written submission to the Township of Bondfield before the proposed consent application is determined, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeal. 1. Has the person or public body made a written submission to the Township of Bondfield?
no.
No. Any person that is
Oh, sorry. It said neighbors haven't, but there were 2 comments from the agencies, but they didn't have any particular strong views. In fact, they were supportive of the development.
Okay, thank you. Number 2, any person that is attending the public meeting shall be afforded an opportunity to make an oral representation in respect to the consent application as presented. Does any person attending wish to make an oral presentation in regard to consent application reference B2 2025? Kostem. Since there is nobody except for us here, I'm going to assume that that's a no. So if there was a yes, there's a orders of instructions that I don't think I need to read now. So this will conclude the public session of the meeting. If anyone wants to be notified of the decision of the approval authority, you must fill out a request form. If you do not fill out the form, you will not be notified. Okay. I think that's a legal obligation taken care of. We'll move into consent application B2 2025 extremely. So it's an application for consent land severance to the property legally described as Concession 2 Part Lot 29 REM Parcel 1233 NIP. I'll look to our planning administrator if you'd like to provide a bit of a briefing and an overview.
Yep, absolutely. So the consent application, as Jason mentioned, refers to lands legally described as Con 2 Part Lot 29 REM PCL 1233 NIP. So it's not a municipal address on this at this time. So the proposal is to create 2 additional residential lots plus the 1 retained lot. The subject property is designated rural. It's also zone rural for planning purposes, and it's surrounded by other properties that have rural characteristics, all with residential dwellings either in place or have been assessed as having vacant residential land value. So what the proposal is to create these 2 new lots, as I say. So both of the frontages of the 2 new lots would have a minimum frontage of at least 83 meters, minimum depth of 495 meters, and that means each lot would be approximately 4.15 hectares in size. So that would leave the remaining lot to be have a frontage of 168 meters, depth of a kilometer, and a area approximately of 30 hectares. So these are mid-sized lots that you could say are being created, 2 new lots plus that retained portion, which includes largely bush, some referred to as development constraint areas, but essentially just 2 small water bodies that run through the property, that create that little bit of a natural feature, if you like, to those. So in terms of provincial planning policies, so the provincial planning statement put into place in October of 2024. No secret, it's very pro-housing, so it's fair to say that the proposal meets that objective in terms of delivering new housing to the township. In terms of rural areas, the PPS is refers more to about maintaining an appropriate mix and balance of rural land uses. Maybe we'll come back to it, but in terms of this area, the property designation, there was questions about would it impact any agricultural uses or aggregate extraction within the area, and we can go into that, but we don't believe that it will, because it's not prime for those uses, and there's not those established uses within an existing radius that you would normally look to create those safeguards for. So natural assets, that refers to the development constraint areas. Now, we've tried to engage with the North Bay Material Conservation Authority. We haven't received an official response to them on this application file, and so one of the conditions proposed is drawn from a previous example. Just what we know is that where these development constraint area water bodies in place, they often ask that there's a minimum 30-meter buffer required, and that if you were to extend into that of any impact in terms of those water courses, that a Section 28 permit would be required. So we felt it was safe to put that one in. But say we've not had the NBMCA comments to that effect. In terms of agriculture, as I mentioned, it falls outside of the range of where any active farms are or barns, and so the minimum distance separation formula need not apply. The area is predominantly residential, all in all directions. So in terms of Bonfield, more specific, our official plan policy, a series that refer to general development policies, agriculture, land use designations, natural heritage features, wetlands, etc. So we've evaluated those, and there appears to be no conflict really in planning terms, nothing of any major concern that would prevent this from happening. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the property, as I say, is zone rural. This typically allows for a range of residential uses, including bed and breakfast, dwelling, duplexes, semi-detached, single detached, group home, home occupation, home industry, and secondary dwelling units. So the applicant hasn't specified exactly what residential or other rural use might be proposed on the property at this time, but we are in discussion about that. So to say, there was no particular comments raised by any agencies. The Hydro One, quite a standard response to say that the applicant would have to contact the advisors that deal with local area distribution systems about connection matters. The Ministry of Transportation, again, because it's a township maintained road, doesn't have any comments on this. The Trans-Canada pipeline is not located in proximity to the site, and put the township, again, no comments were received or no objections, let's say, to the proposal as presented.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will, so in order to follow appropriate procedure, I will read, I'll look for a mover and a seconder, and I will read the motion, and then we'll open it up for questions, so. I will look for a mover and a seconder for consent application by member Paquette, seconded by member Langlois, thank you, and buckle up, I have to read the place thing. Planning. 6A, planning report for B2 Krasinski application for consent land severance at the property legally described at concession 2 part 2 lot 29 RAM parcel 1223 NIP. And so the standard conditions are the planning advisory committee recommends to council that consent application B2 2025 Krasinski Con 2 part lot 29 RAM parcel 1233 NIP be approved with the following conditions. 1, that this approval applies to the land legally described as Con 2 part lot 29 RAM parcel 1233 NIP. 2, that the following documents be provided. A, an original executed transfer or deed, a duplicate original, and 1 photocopy for our records. B, a copy of the survey plan deposited in the land titles office if required. C, an electronic copy of the survey emailed to planning@bonfieldtownship.com. D, a schedule describing the severed lands attached to the transfer for approval purposes. E, a schedule that provides a registerable legal description attached to the transfer for the retained land and approved purposes if required. 3, if there is a forced road situation, a 20-meter road allowance or whatever amount is required for road purposes shall be transferred to the municipality at the owner's expense across the whole lot or parcel for which the severance was taken, and compensation shall be awarded as per the compensation grid for the transfer of forced land roads. 4, that the building setbacks for all buildings must meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw for the retained and or severed lots, whichever are affected at the time of survey. 5, that the fee of 5% in lieu of parkland dedication be paid to the township of Bonfield in respect to each of the proposed new lots to be created. 6, that any tax arrears must be paid prior to the stamping of transfer deeds for a new lot. 7, that the survey will apply to both the retained and proposed severed lands. 8, that no further consent to sever applications which would result in the creation of additional lots shall be considered in respect to the land and property as described. An additional condition, number 9, that the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority be consulted throughout the development of individual site plans associated with the proposed development of severed and or retained lots. And that the vegetative buffer be maintained of at least 30 meters of an approximate regulated area, including the watercourse and wetland on the property, and that the section 28 permit be required should development be proposed within the ARA. Okay, we'll open it up for questions or comments. Anybody has any? Member Langlois.
I'm just trying to think of a previous severance. At one time, we had to wait till the North Bay Mattawa went out in the spring. What was, do you recall, do any of you recall that? That we couldn't, that we had to hold off?
That might have been based on something that they were within a certain range from wetlands and they had to confirm it.
Yeah, there's different levels of protection for wetlands. There's no wetlands on this property, it's just a water body, so it's a standard kind of response that they give about a 30-meter setback.
Yeah, there was something until, I can't recall, I didn't have a chance to look back.
Oh, it's
don't know why
possible, you know,
exactly.
where there's more complex site, and certainly I wouldn't try to push anything
No,
through. I
no,
would
no, I know
always,
that, but I'm just
you know,
trying to,
yeah,
Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't even heard from our friends at the
Or-
Mattawa Conservation.
Or they
Authority
have
with
to
this.
wait for the, when you put in the sewer septic system, then they.
I know
have to
it's the
do a
septic
site
for
system.
sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Which would be-
For a building.
So-
Yeah, I guess it would be a
They
bill.
won't be
Yeah,
able
for
to start building without.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but It was just something on the severance and,
I'm trying to rack my, I don't remember details, so.
and
Um,
Simon would know all his people that he has to contact.
Yeah, especially if it's gonna be, if they're gonna try and develop the land and put a. Look, it's another application in order to be
Yeah.
able to do that.
And the first part of condition 9 covers that. So the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority would be consulted throughout the development of individual site plans associated with the proposed development, severed and or retained lots. So that's going to open up the whole conversation about what we need to do to fulfill these.
Yes.
I have a question regarding, I think it was part 5 regarding the 5%.
Yeah, and the parkland dedication.
Exactly, yeah. What was that? Is that just a general statement?
Yeah, that's a general,
The new parkland dedication be paid, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Not applicable very likely to this site, right?
everybody
No,
has
the
to.
creation of all new lots, yeah, there's a
Yeah.
requirement of the assessed value at 5%. So there was a bylaw
In lieu
passed.
of parkland, but if they have treed, then how does that work?
Well, no, because it's towards parkland in a municipal sense, right? So we might not necessarily be developing or creating new parks or encouraging the proliferation of parks across the township, but
Oh, so it's a
it-
tax,
it-
5%.
it's a
tax.
contribution to public services. Yeah,
It's mandatory.
it is. Yeah, it's in the bylaw from 2024.
Instead of taking a little chunk off the land. Which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, my understanding is, you know, as a municipality develops and you get more and more homes, obviously, more and more pressure comes to. Really want to make sure that we're providing a level of service to attract families, so
Mm.
parks
Yeah,
and
and
different recreation
It's
facilities.
been
and,
a long time,
Yeah,
5% in lieu of parkland,
yeah.
for as long as I can remember.
So that's for up to 5 hectares in size, and beyond 5 hectares, it's 7.5%.
Okay.
any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. Good. I was gonna have to do the tiebreaker right. Is there any correspondence for you?
No,
Seeing none, I will move adjournment. I look for a mover and a seconder. Moved by member Woods, seconded by member Foisey, that this meeting be adjourned at 6:18 PM.
it's a
All in
record.
favor? That